Welcome to Fitness Pro Chat by Fiterobic. Now, on to the show.
Welcome to the show, Rui.
Thanks, Alec.
Well, I was just going through one of the studies recently, and it mentioned that 41% of the workers today wants to prioritize their work life over salary. And each individual definitely has different interpretations about work-life balance. In your definition, how exactly work-life balance can be achieved, especially given the kind of pressure that we see in different organizations globally?
Hi, Alec. Thanks for having me in your show once again. It's always a pleasure to be a guest speaker. Yeah, let's talk about work-life balance. That's a very good question because since COVID, I don't know if you paid attention to it, our life changed, right? There's a
Yes.
big merge between our professional life with our private life. And we kind of lost traction of the little habits that keep us energizing us. Most people feel that their life are out of balance, right? And believe it or not, it's very important to reach a balance in our lives between what was our work and what is our private life. In the past, we had that clear balance. You know, you leave work, you come home, and there was no communications. Now we live in a culture where we are always on, always connected, and
Absolutely.
we treat everything as urgent, which is not. So most of us experience an out of balance life because we lost the capability and the ability to separate both areas. Now, I know, as at Balance Rebel, we coach a lot of individuals. And one of the questions I normally ask is, what is work-life balance to you? Everybody talks about, oh, I want to have work-life balance. I want to have work-life balance. But how can you define it? How do you understand if you're in balance or out of balance? And most people associate work-life balance with being happy. No.
Mhm.
Work-life balance is about having an equilibrium that it's not perfect between
Okay.
the different variables of your life, work, sleep, nutrition,
Yeah. Yeah.
movement, divided by time.
That's a great definition, actually.
Time is not infinite, and we humans keep treating time as an infinite resource. And first of all, we have to understand to reach work life balance, first we have to understand two things. Perfect balance is not possible. The perfect balance, on when we created an equation to understand, to help people to find work life balance, perfect balance is not possible, right? Now, what the equation helps is to people to understand what areas of their life are actually very out of balance, divided by 24 hours. And we have to be very clear that our day is 24 hours times 7 days, 24 hours a day. And it's not infinite. And we keep treating as time as infinite, infinite, infinite. No, time is very finite. And for you to understand what work-life balance is, you have to look into the finite of time, right? And what are your priorities? Sleeping, movement, nutrition, joy, work, right? And you have to look to these variables and give them a weight. How much of my time does my work consume? And how much time I have left for the other things, right? And that's when you start looking into your personal matrix of work-life balance, which is going to be different than mine because your priorities are going to be different than mine. So when we talk about work-life balance, we have to look into priorities divided by the number of hours that we all have in the day, that is 24. And that's how you can start looking to work-life balance. Why is it becoming so important? Because we're all out of balance. Most people commit too many hours to work, and then because their stress levels are so high, the very little time they have left in the day, they use distractions as a stress coping mechanism. And that's when things
Mhm.
derail and becoming out of balance. So that's why people nowadays crave a balance that we lost because of being an always on society.
That's a very detailed explanation on work-life balance. We do not prioritize some of the key important things of life, including sleep.
Mhm.
Before our podcast, we were talking about longevity. So I would want to understand from you more on how longevity and work-life balance are related, are two inseparable part of staying healthy, or are there two different directions in which we are talking about?
They're interconnected. Before we go to the connection between both, let me explain what longevity is, right? We assume that longevity is about living longer. Longevity is not about living longer. Longevity is about living better. And that's where we're losing life quality nowadays. We improve the connectivity, we improve medicines, we improve our lifespan, but we decrease on our life quality. We spend too much time commuting, we spend too many hours inside an office, and we don't have much joy in life. So our life quality has decreased. That's why emotional and mental health diseases are skyrocketing around the world. So longevity, it's about understanding how can you add life into your years, not years into your life. So that's the first component. And for that, you have to look into the same variables that we're looking on the work-life balance equation. Sleep, movement, nutrition, stress management, priority management, and our underestimated superpower, joy. What we do now is just distractions, cheap dopamine as a coping mechanism to the imbalance we have in our life, which is not, distractions are good, but they just do not work as a coping mechanism. Now, longevity and work-life balance, they're associated, right? Because if you experience an out of balance life, that means that the variables that help you to sustain your performance, they're not in place. So work-life balance and longevity, they go hand in hand. Because if you work too many hours, sleep too little, have too many distractions, what's going to happen? At some point in time, your life and your health will be compromised. When your life and your health are compromised, your longevity is compromised. And therefore, we look into all these little things, starting with sleep. And more and more, and I say this like I get scared because people are so tired, so fatigued, and so highly stressed that they're willing to compromise their sleep in order to get distractions. The amount of people that I coach and they come to me and I said, listen, Rui, I go to bed and I stay on the phone scrolling on social media. And I'm like, that's a very unhealthy coping mechanism. I understand your brain is asking for that. But if you're compromising your sleep, that cheap dopamine is going to become an addiction and it's going to become worse. And there's more distractions you have in your life, more fatigue, more exhausted you're going to be because you're not recovering. You're rewarding yourself with pleasure. So that's why we have to look into the longevity, the variables that keep us living better, not longer. Some clinics, they associate longevity the way you look outside. We associate longevity the way you treat yourself inside. Your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health and your energy, sleep, nutrition, all these variables that we keep talking all the time, priority, stress, all these are important. So work-life balance and longevity, they go hand in hand because even for the people that do not work, right? Your life can be out of balance even if you're a housewife or a house husband, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
You don't have necessarily to work to have an imbalanced life or an out of balanced life.
Yes.
You just have to be in a situations where these variables of your life are not just working.
If we look around, there is news that too many people, especially in the 20s and 30s, are dying out of cardiac arrest. It is either due to stress or poor eating habits that they would have inculcated over the years. And when we look about longevity, maybe fixing ourselves inner or living better, so how do you address these kind of situations? What would you suggest to people to practice or when they try to incorporate healthy eating habits or healthy physical habits in their daily life? What exactly they should be doing so that they are not, prone to such kind of situations in future?
Can I challenge that question? Do you allow me to challenge that question?
Absolutely.
I tell you why. Because first, before we telling what are the best practice, I'm not going to use the word need because need implies an obligation to us, right? And we're going to have that feeling of I'm not doing what people say that I need to be doing, which brings a little guilt, shame, and all this type of emotional stress to us. Let's look to the situation from a different perspective. Let's look into the lack of knowledge and capacity of managing our own stress levels, because that's the real cause of the problem. Most people nowadays, they do not understand that stress is actually a good thing. Not managing our stress levels, that's the problem. Stress is not bad. Food is not bad. Alcohol is not bad. It's not the problem is on these things. It's our relationship with these things and why do we use those things as a coping mechanism to manage stress. The problem is that we live in a society that demonizes things other than looking to taking accountability and ownership for our own habits. As I said, our own habits. It's not the habits of anyone else, they're ours. So we have an accountability and an ownership to manage that relationship, not to someone else. That's the first thing. Second thing is we have to look into the ability. And I'm a big advocate on this, that universities and business schools, they're great in educating us from a book perspective, but there's missing the component of stress management because it's very important. So nowadays, because we do not know how to manage our own stress levels, we use coping mechanisms or distractions to manage that. Now, first, so we have to look into our relationship with stress and how do we perceive what stress is for us, right? Nowadays, the young generation, or it's still my generation is still a bit different. I'm 47, as you know, so we manage things a bit different. But first, for you to understand where you are, you have to understand how you're managing your stress. Now, the second thing is changing the narrative, right? Changing the narrative of your relationship with those variables. Now, as you said it and very well, heart diseases are skyrocketing now, right? They're becoming the number one cause of death worldwide. And that is most related to lifestyle, right? Poor stress management skills, which elevates our need of coping mechanisms, food, physical and activity, cheap dopamine, and so on. So we have to understand that the brain doesn't know recovery. The brain knows rewards. And we have the responsibility and ownership to understand that who manages the brain, it's me. So sleep, movement, nutrition, these are all recovery strategies. Scrolling on social media, because it doesn't take me any time, I'm just on my phone scrolling like this, and it doesn't take me any energy. It's not a recovery strategy. So we have to use the power of breathing, the power of movement, the power of nutrition, the power of sleeping, the power of joy to help us recover that. And until you learn this relationship, there's nothing that I can say you need to move more. Everybody knows that we need to move every day. Everybody knows that we need to eat better. Everybody knows that we need to sleep 7 to 9 hours. Why do we fail to do that? Because of the relationship we have with these variables. So it's not so much the need, is more about the relationship with those variables. So I like to.
So if we look at the work environment today, it runs for longer hours. There's the boundary between office working hours and working from home that is completely blurred now. What your suggestion would be like to manage or to, even if like someone has to sleep for 7 to 9 hours, given the kind of limited time that they get after long working hours, how do they actually try to recover themselves mentally and physically both so that they feel refreshed to perform at the same optimum level the next day?
Well, if you want to separate the best from the rest, is with rest, right? So this is, I read it on a book of Peak Performance, and I love this sentence. If you want to separate the best from the rest, you actually have to rest. Now, why do I say this? Because, and you said it very well, there's a merge between personal life and the corporate life. So both entities, us and organizations, we co-share this responsibility. Unfortunately, organizations still do not have that mindset. They all say, and I know this because I do corporate health coaching, as you know, and I go to them and I said, human capital is our biggest asset. And I said, great. And we can't live without human capital. And I said, great. And I said, so how do you take care of your human capital? Oh, we don't. But what are the demands you put on your human capital? Oh, are very high. So how do you expect your human capital to sustain their performance? It's by luck. Organizations do not have a human capital strategy to optimize and sustain their biggest asset. And that was one of the biggest problems. We keep demanding results, we keep demanding deliverables, we keep demanding performance and productivity, but we're not giving them the tools to sustain that. We give them more connectivity, we give them more working hours, but then what? What organizations are ending up doing is burning human capital. And that's why the cases of burnout, fatigue, mental fatigue, decision-making fatigue, all these type of fatigues are happening. And we always link to the physical fatigue because that's the one we relate more when you go to the gym and you get very tired. But mental and emotional fatigue, decision-making fatigue, they're all very real. I'm not just making these names.
Absolutely.
They're real and they exist. So from one hand, you have the responsibility of the organizations. That is,
yes,
if human capital is our biggest asset, we should take care of the assets that make us exist. And the organizations are still not looking at that. They're still looking at coaching and providing the tools for their human capital to nurture them, to make them sustain their performance. They still think it's a cost. They do not think it's an investment. Right? Oh, I don't want to spend money with these things, but you keep demanding them. So at some point in time, people are going to start feeling, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be compromising my life. So one side is that. And the other side, it's our own personal responsibility.
Yeah.
I know my skills will need energy to perform.
That's true.
I can't make my own energy and I need energy to live. So the way I manage my own energy will determine my ability to sustain my performance. Now, if either I work in an office environment or I work from home, I have to understand that my environment is different. So I can't have the same habits. I can't have the same behaviors because I have two different environments. It's like if I go ski or if I go run, do I take the same gear? No, it's different. I have to prepare myself for the environment I'm going to practice the sport. The same thing happens. So if I work in an office environment, I'm going to have a set of skills. I'm going to have strategic breaks. I want to make sure I dress myself, I commute, I go to work, I do office breaks, and I have a lunch break, right? Then I leave work. So there's a bunch of things that I do. If I'm from home, if I work from home, I don't have the commuting. But I still have to change the environment from a brain performance perspective. I have to make breaks. I have to stand up. I can't stay on the computer longer hours just because I'm home, because your brain needs a break. So we have that responsibility that is Netflix. Again, I have nothing against Netflix. It's a great platform, but we use it as a coping mechanism. Social media scrolling to physical inactivity. These are enemies of the demands of life. So we have to look at this as an enemy, not as a facilitator to relax as we normally read them, right? Just because it's easy to sit there and enjoy a glass of wine while you're watching your favorite series on Netflix, that's great. But if you're coming with a very high stress load, it will not recover from you. So we have to look into there's a co-shared responsibility between organizations' demands and our ability to perform and sustain our performance in different environments. So it's a two-way street, It's not just organizations are to be blamed or I am to be blamed. No, I know that I have to sustain my performance, and the organization, if it's demanding my time, my personal time, to be used as a work time, so at least they have the responsibility to provide the tools and the guidance on how best optimize your habits in order to sustain that performance.
Absolutely. And I think you rightly said organization needs to take care about longevity or work-life balance. I think there's more that needs to be done from the organization side, especially trying to help employees feel de-stressed. In your conversation, especially with the employers and also with employees that you interact with, how exactly you feel that employees can promote a work-life balance? Is there a support system that needs to be built for employees in a high stress roles? Because especially, as employees move ahead in the role, work life becomes too stressful. And how do they manage it on a day-to-day basis? And what organizations can do in terms of supporting them altogether?
All right. Let's put the things in this perspective. You're an athlete, right? You're the athlete of your life. You're always competing with yourself, right? And your organization is your coach. Your organization is going to make the best possible to take your performance, to make sure you deliver results and that you reach number one. As a coach, you want you to work out, you want to have good nutrition, and I want you to rest. And you also to have downtime.
Yeah.
So organizations have to understand that always on culture is important, but not everything is urgent. Organizations have to understand that rest, it's not a luxury. Rest is a necessity. Peak performance comes from rest, not from hard working, not from overworking. It comes from smart working. We have to look into quality rather than quantity. We still think that more hours are better. No. I don't see any Olympian competing 24/7 or compromising their sleep or constantly compromising their habits that keeps to sustain their performance. We should compare ourselves with Olympians because these are the ones that sustain performance. Right? We have to have time to rest. Organizations should make sure that being always on is good, but resting is even better because that's what makes us sustain performance. So there needs to be a boundary. Connectivity is great. I'm not against connectivity. Connectivity is great, but we have to have that ability to understand not everything should be treated the same. I'll give you an example. The other day I was coaching a company and someone was telling me I stay reading emails until 10 in the evening. And I asked and I said, okay, can you explain to me why? And because I have to make sure that I don't get all my emails are done. And I ask, are all your emails urgent? From all these emails that you compromise your sleep and your personal life and your family time, were all your emails urgent? No. How many of these emails were really urgent? Maybe 2 or 3. But yet you allocated time to treat everything as urgent. So no, we have to understand that there's a difference between urgent, there's a difference to what is important. Now I'll tell you something. Urgent is never related to you. Urgent is always related to other people. Important is always related to you. So we have to have that capability of understanding if what is urgent and what is important. Urgent is someone else's to-do list. Someone else is going to tell, oh, this is urgent for me, for them, not for you, right? So we have to understand, oh, it's urgent to reply to email or is it important to be with my family? When I'm talking about the 10 in the evening. If it's not really urgent, the email, it's just wasting your time with things that are going to compromise. Again, remember what I said in the beginning, time is finite. And we have to change that perception for us to understand I don't have time for everything in life. So because time is finite, therefore, as a finite resource, I have it to treat it as a valuable one. And if I cannot make more time, if I can't add the hours into my day, I have to be able to separate what's urgent and what's important and making sure that my priorities are non-negotiable, are put in place to achieve that work-life balance we're looking.
Yeah. So we just talked about this misconception of putting in more hours, and that's considered productivity. We also talked about priority over importance. The debate of priority versus something which is urgent and important.
Urgent versus important.
Urgent versus important. If we look at this from different frames, how exactly people can shift their mindset, and like one of the conversations you cited as an example, how exactly people can actually shift their mindset to prioritize output over a number of hours, because right now the mindset is, okay, if I work for say 14 hours a day, I may accomplish more in a day instead of doing 4 hours of focused work and accomplishing more and then have the rest 10 hours free, right? So how exactly someone can prioritize their output over hours?
Let me ask you a question. Do you want to accomplish more or you want to be more efficient? Because again, the number accomplish more doesn't mean necessarily that is a good quality of work. You can accomplish more tasks, but doesn't mean that necessarily the result is a good quality. We have to look into being smart. We have to remember. On the first podcast I would talk about smart nutrition. I think it was on the first one we spoke about smart nutrition,
Yes.
right? Smart nutrition is
Yes.
about having the ability to choose the right nutrients for us. Now we live in a society, in a time, we have to be smart with our choices. We have to be smart on the way we work, and we have to be smart on the way we manage our priorities. Because now we have overbooked our day with more tasks than the day can handle, as rule number one. Therefore, if the day is already overbooked, we have to be smart. Smart on our approach to all these variables. Working more hours doesn't mean necessarily with more quality. Okay, if you don't
Yes.
rest, your brain is going to be fatigued. Your critical thinking and your internal resources are going to be depleted. Probably you spend too many hours seated without moving, so your heart rate is on not on the great zone. Your nutrients, glucose and oxygen deliverables to the brain is lower, right? Because you haven't moved. And probably because your stress levels are so high, you're going to use for those little snacks and chocolates and candies and that cigarette or things like that as a coping mechanism. So we have to be smart. Sitting is the new smoking, number one. Sitting too
That's true.
many
That's true.
hours at the desk, it's not good for you. So we have to have a smart approach on the way we work. Because remember what I said, because life merged with corporate and personal, we lost that capability that my parents or my grandparents had. That was, we work, we finish work, we walk to home, then we spend time with our kids, we cook and everything. Now
Yeah.
it's everything on the go, on the go, on the go. I'm busy, 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 busy. And because you move from one place to the other, your stress levels are high, you're too tired, you don't want to cook, you want something quickly, we order, and so on and so on. And you just want something quick and doesn't take energy from you because you're running life on an empty tank. So you have to be
That's true.
smart on your approach to life if you want to live better, not to live longer, to live better, right? And I see so many I have some couple of friends in Dubai in cities that I call it the six cities, in the sense that the demands and the pressure and the levels of stress are so high that is
Uh-huh.
the coping mechanisms are completely out of balance. And I always say, guys, this is not sustainable. It's going to be sustainable now that you're 47, 48, 49. Your 50s are around the corner and things are going to happen. And now you start seeing diseases that were much later in time are happening much earlier, because our ability to manage our longevity is completely compromised. And again, it's our responsibility. Not someone, not to a pill, not to an injection, not to a fast, quick fix, I don't know, secret sauce recipe. And I see so many things on the internet. Olive oil makes you lose weight. And I've seen it the other day and I'm like, oh my God, how does olive oil helps me to lose weight?
Right.
It's that we're flooded with quick fixes rather than
Yeah.
looking to our relationship with our own life, which we have that ownership.
That's true. That's true. Many people also hesitate to seek professional help, especially, I mean, when they are stressed out or when they are struggling with work-life balance. They do not know who to reach out or how do they actually talk themselves out to coaches. So, what would be your suggestion? Like, at what point in time do you feel that they should just say, no, let me just reach out, maybe to my friend or get a coach or to anyone who they feel is important in their life?
Okay, so that's a very good question, Alok, because people still think that coaches are charlatans, that they don't see the real value of having an accountability partner. So the first thing is, coaching is about accountability. Coaching is a guide by your side that helps you to reach your goals. Now, we all know what we need to do, but we all fail to do so. Why? Because also the way the brain operates, right? The brain operates with engraved neural pathways that likes to be in your comfort zone. So a coach is someone that's going to challenge you to get out of your comfort zone and grow. That's number one. Number two, you have to look into your body as a collection of symptoms. Your body talks to you on a daily basis, right? It tells you if you reach out for alcohol frequently, if your sleep is compromised, if you start eating too much junk food, if you're feeling sad, if you're starting to go to work and you have eczemas, you go to your boss and your acid reflux, headaches, right? Muscle tension. These are all symptoms that tell you something is out of balance. So start listening to your body. Start listening to the collection of symptoms that your body is telling you. And if you don't want to look for a coach, talk to a friend, right? Talk to someone, say, look, my life is out of balance. I'm not sleeping. If you're not sleeping, that's number one symptom. If you're not sleeping, it's your body telling you you have too much stress. Don't take a sleeping pill because you have to sleep and you start getting used to sleeping with sleeping pills. No. Look to what's happening in your life for you not to be sleeping. Right? So the thing is, I normally say coaches are like the personal trainers in the 80s. No one wanted to have a personal trainer. Everybody thought personal trainer was only for the rich and famous. It's too expensive, And nowadays, everybody has a PT. Everybody uses a personal trainer at least at some point in time. Coaches are going to be the same thing in the future, right?
Yeah.
The problem is that still, because there's so many people that came into the market, I'm a coach this, I'm a coach of that, I'm a coach, and they're not. They're just people that they decided I'm going to help the others, which is fine. But you have to look into the coaching as a real job, a real professional, and not someone that will going to give you information. A coach is someone that is going to help you to get that transformation, a guide by your side that's going to help you to change your habits. Not someone's going to tell you, you need to do this, you need to do that, or you need to live life on those terms. No, that's not a coach. That's a dictator of your life terms.
Yeah, sure. So one final question. What actionable steps would you suggest for people who are trapped in this cycle of overwork?
Okay. So first of all, let's look into the perception of your day. We spoke about this on the first podcast, right?
Yeah.
So your day doesn't start when you wake up.
Yes.
Your day starts when you go to bed, right?
That's true.
So the way you sleep, the duration, and the quality will determine the amount of energy you're going to have available for the next day. Now, having said this, if your day starts when you go to bed, the most important hour is going to be the hour just before your bedtime, right? So if you come from, why am I saying this? Because you said someone that has experienced a lot of stress, right? If someone has experienced a lot of stress, you can't just expect to go to bed and sleep.
That's true.
You have to help your brain to wind down. And that's going to happen on that hour just before bedtime. And that hour should be passed or enjoyed. I like to use the term enjoyed because that hour should be yours, should be a pleasure, not an obligation. I have to do this.
Yes.
No. That's your moment. That's your me moment, right? Read, have some intimacy with your partner, spend time with your kids, journal, write, stretch, breathe, listening to some calming music. Take notes of what went wrong on your day. Never take notes of what you want to do tomorrow, because then you're going to start thinking about it. What went wrong with my day? What went right? Right? Help your body. We're biological computers, but we're not machines. Right? So help your brain to calm down. Change your life, change the narrative. Do not expect to stress, go to bed and sleep. It's not going to happen. So wind down. So someone that's wants to start by improving their work-life balance and improving their longevity, I do recommend to start looking to the way you sleep at night. Your perception about your sleep. Your perception about sleeping is way more important from a stress management recovery point of view than sitting in front of a TV, sitting down and watching a show that will not help you to recover anything, right? So look to your sleep as a starting point. And when your sleep is fixed, when you have the ability to your body, because during sleep, your body recalibrates, regenerates, and recharge. Yes. When you have more energy, you start managing your thoughts differently. And that's when you can start changing and performing things in your life. So as a starting point, look to your sleep. Your sleep is good. Then you start looking to managing my priorities. What's important, what's non-negotiable. right? What is
That's true.
important on my day? What's non-negotiable? Sleep is non-negotiable. Now,
Yeah.
if I have one night that work requires that I have all night, that's fine. One night's not gonna kill me. But when it
Yes.
becomes recurrent and consistent, then that becomes a problem because then you're gonna just losing the ability to do all these things, right? So we have to look to the what's non-negotiable: sleep, what's non-negotiable: nutrition, what is important: moving my body daily. Might have some days that I might not be able to move. That's okay. I can walk. I might not go to the gym. I can jump at home. I can dance with my kids. There's so many things we can do from a family oriented point of view. Or if you're alone, if you're a single person, doesn't matter, right? Some days I cannot work every day, and I enjoy working out. But if I can't work, I'll go for a walk. If I'm in an airport, I never take the people's walk. I never take the automatic stairs. I try to move my body as much as I can, right? So we incorporate these things. So, but the starting point of everything, as I say, the starting point of life is sleep. So look to your sleep. Look the way you sleep. Do you have a racing mind? Do you think about work? Do you wake up in the middle of the night thinking about life problems? Then these are a full collection of symptoms that you're not winding down your brain and you're actually not resting, recharging, and regenerating.
Sure. So thank you so much, Rui. It's always been a pleasure to speak with you, and there's always a lot to learn. Thank you so much, Rui, and I look forward to hosting you for another exciting one pretty soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alok, and it's always a pleasure to be a guest speaker on your podcast. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Fitness Pro Chat by Fiterobic. We hope you had key takeaways from today's episode and learned something new. Don't forget to download and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, and leave us a rating and review on your favorite platform. In the meantime, reach out to us on Instagram at Fiterobic or through our website, fiterobic.com. And remember, failures will only make you strong and better learned. Take care, stay healthy, and live a fulfilling life with Fiterobic.